Hi everybody, it's Jackie Schomburg-Abstract. I spent a few hours on these two sketchbook pages, and I thought you might like to see my full process. I started with mark making, so this giant black acrylic marker that I have, and some Neocolor crayons. One of them is water soluble, one of them is not, so you can see that the water soluble one is smearing a little bit in the paint. Added some paint with my color shaper, which again is not a brush. It looks like a brush. It has a silicone tip on it, which makes it very easy to clean and leave some unique marks. Throughout this process in this video, I get lost with this piece, and it's pretty messy and horrible for a while. And by the end, I feel really good about it. So this was a lesson for me and for all of us that you might need to put something away for a little while, a few days, longer, and then you can come back to it, and there's always a way to turn it around. These first few layers, all I'm trying to do is get color and marks and just make an interesting background. Again, interesting, not necessarily beautiful. I had some colors in mind when I started this. I'm using Payne's Gray there, which is kind of a navy blue color, using some oranges, using a Celadon green, which is that kind of neutral beigey green, and some yellow ochre, and white. Bring in some yellow now just to try to make a creamy orange to add in. To go along with the yellow ochre crayon. Not crazy about the color, but when in Rome, might as well commit to it and keep going. When the top layer of paint is wet, oftentimes I like to scratch into it and it reveals the color underneath. I like that effect. If you wait too long, the paint will dry and it won't work at all. That purple thing I used to scratch in this time was a knitting needle. Sometimes I'll just use pencils without tips or pencils with tips. Then you get a graphite and kind of a three-dimensional scratch into the paint. This is like a baking frosting spatula, an offset spatula. I enjoy the randomness of where the paint goes with using that. So at this point, I'm not at all happy with the compositions or the colors, but I'm determined to keep making marks and to keep adding paint and to continue building up the layers. I'm not sure how other artists do it. When I start out a piece like this, I have no end game in mind. I'm just following what feels good in the moment. So I have no composition, shape in mind for the end result. Just following the marks I'm making and the paint I'm using. And now collage. Collage has been a game changer for me, just to make a bold, distinct change in direction for paintings. You can certainly do it with a paintbrush also, or mark making, and sometimes I do, but collage is kind of a magical addition for me. It really helps me get to the next phase of a painting. So it completely transforms. Adding those blue orb shapes completely changes what that painting on the left looks like. Gives it some sort of structure. It's not so mushy, for lack of a better phrase. And same with these stripes. Adding the stripes gives it more of a structure. And I'm a sucker for stripes, so it works out both ways. I used to think that artists, when they had their finished piece, that they had planned to make that finished piece from start to finish. I don't know why I thought that. I just assumed that every artist knew exactly where their piece would end up, and they would work toward it with that straight line of their end result. Now, I can fully appreciate, 40 years after I originally started thinking that, I can understand that maybe that sometimes happens if someone's going to paint a house, or even an abstract shape. But I really feel like, as artists, part of the joy of painting and creating is finding things as we go. So you might have an idea to make an orb shape, a dark orb shape on a light background. Great. But all of the different textures and marks between beginning and end, I would hope that some of them are very surprising to you as the artist. Otherwise, it must just be horribly boring. And then it's more of a mass production situation than a true creative adventure. I talked before in separate videos about my improv history and taking a bunch of improv comedy classes. As part of that, I also took an acting class, one. And in the acting class, all we did for, 6 or 8 weeks was learn to memorize and perform one monologue. So the same piece every single week. We were supposed to practice it during the week. I'm pretty sure I never did. Or rarely did. It was so boring to me because I already knew what the piece said, right? It was one monologue, it was one speech. And doing it every week, it was so unappealing and it was horribly boring. And I never wanted to take an acting class. I could not imagine being an actor saying the same thing every day, every day, every day, every day, many times a day. Not for me. I liked improv because the magic that happens when someone has a really clever response or a quick response or just comes up with something absurd off the top of their head. There's so much magic there and it's so much fun to do because you never know what's going to happen. The same thing is true for my art. If I knew exactly what I was going to make, it's horribly boring. And same thing about making one piece twice. I used to make more design-focused paintings that had, so I could replicate something. I could replicate a photograph. I did a couple photographs of some friends that I found interesting, and it was really fun to do the first time. In some cases, I repeated it. The second time, much less fun because I already knew what was going to happen at the end. So abstract art in this way, in this mixed media art making is so much more fun to me, because much like right now I'm putting this jelly plate down on top of rubber bands. I didn't know it was going to happen. Made an interesting mark that I probably wouldn't have thought of had I tried to just make a shape with a paintbrush. So having these unknown little surprises along the way, for me, is the whole point. It's what makes it so fun to me, and so challenging because you can't plan everything. For me, that's a big plus. So with these marks that I've been adding in the collage pieces I've been trying to just put some big, bold, high contrast pieces in. So the black and white is a huge high contrast situation where black is as dark as you can get and white is as light as you can get. So it really attracts the eye. Before both pieces, where there's a lot of kind of mid-tone, mid-value colors and shapes that were kind of, I don't know, all in the same kind of color, mid-tone colors, which is just boring to have everything one value. So by adding these high contrast pieces, it really pulls your eye in different directions and gives it a pop, makes it more interesting. Plus, if you've seen my work before, I love having high contrast black and white shapes against a colorful background. The branch there, I have a paintbrush on one side and a pen on the other. It helps me to just make more free brush strokes. So I can't plan everything, so I get some happy surprises. It is important before you add collage to make sure that your paint is dry. Oftentimes I'll take out my hair dryer and just use that to speed up the process. But if you add gloss medium or matte medium to wet paint, it'll just smear all over your painting. Pro tip. Adding some tissue paper collage here. The tissue paper blends in better with the existing paint, so it's a more subtle addition. Or it can be when it's not, you know, giant black shape. Trying to bring back some color since this piece turned mostly blue and green. So I like where this piece is, how it's positioned, but I decided that the background wasn't as much of a contrast against the light of the white as I had hoped for. So I mixed up some darker blue just to get a bit of a glaze over that area, to add a little bit more blue before adding the white and black piece. So now it really pops. So at this point, I'm feeling less lost with these pieces, right? I'm getting some structure. I'm getting some higher contrast pieces that are helping me form my focal point. At this point, probably multiple focal points on each one. But I'm still not sure what to do. in between that clip and the last one was about a week. I just put it aside, worked on some other things, and last night decided to take it out again. And again, for me, when I'm not sure what to do, I add collage. So I've been working on some new monoprinting collage papers and thought this shape might work well. One of the challenges that I have is to quiet things down. I still get attached to all my detail and things, even if I know they're too busy, it's hard for me to paint over things and be confident that I'm painting over the, quote unquote, the correct pieces to paint over. So with collaging with these white painted collage shapes, it helps me quiet it down in a way that it's a more subtle quieting down, and I'm making it more defined by painting over it to make it a darker white. If that makes sense. A more opaque white. You can see inside that arch how much brighter that white is, and you can see less of the background through it. Feeling much better about this one as I was painting it. The quieter I made that white against the other details, the happier I was and the more I liked the piece. Found this 1/4 inch masking tape on Amazon. Thought I'd give this a try to make some new stripes. Blotting the paint with the paper helps to take some of the extra paint off, so it helps it dry faster, and it also lifts a bit of the paint to allow me to put layers on that are more gradual, so I can decide how dark I want the layers or how opaque I want the layers. Again, hard to get dark white. trying the same thing on the other side. I was not happy with that black mark that I extended out with the paintbrush from the collage piece. It was just too straight and too thick. Adding the stripes here I liked a lot better. So really the lesson that is so easy to think of and so much harder to practice is just keep going. Keep showing up, even if you don't like what you're making, even if you think it's ugly and there's no way to save it. Keep painting. Finally learning this. After knowing it in my head for so long, I'm finally doing it. And it has always resolved itself in the end. Even if I'm not loving a piece in the end, it still feels finished. But more often than not, I like it. And I like it more because of the plight, because of the journey, because of how long I was stuck in a certain place, and then I finally resolved it. It's more rewarding. Right, Louise Fletcher, an artist out of the UK that I really like and admire, she always says if art was easy, if painting were really easy, that we could sit down and make whatever we wanted every single time we sat down, there would be no challenge and we wouldn't do it. And I believe her. If this was so easy, it would be so boring. Adding some black stripes. Now this is called bone black, this color, and it's a transparent-ish black, but you can see it doesn't go on extremely thick, and you can see the shapes underneath. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this. I hope it was helpful. If there are things you'd like me to talk about and make videos about, please let me know in the comments. I'm happy to make videos and would love to know what you're interested in. Thanks everybody. Bye.